Hello again. I'm going to show you today a tutorial. Let me just get it for you. A tutorial for the holly square in the Christmas blanket. This appears right at the beginning when we're making the block of squares that forms the centre. There's the holly one, and there's also what I call the snow one, which I'll show you later, but for the tutorial today it's going to be this one. Now I've started by putting a slip stitch onto my hook, and I'm going to chain 2 and keeping them quite loose if possible. For starting, especially when it's a small tight little circle of double crochet stitches, some people prefer to use the magic circle. Personally, I don't. I'm not a great fan of it. I like to chain my start, and so I'm going to work into the first chain of the chain 2 that I've just made and make that the circle. So I've chained my 2, I'm going back, finding the first one that I did, and I'm going to make a double crochet stitch into it. In US terms, of course, that's single crochet. So double crochet is into the loop, pull up a loop onto your hook, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. So that's me done 2 stitches. So I'm working into this first chain every time. So I want to make 12 in total. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 2 more, 11 and 12. Here we go. So that's me done 12 stitches into that loop. Now I've counted them out loud, so I'm pretty sure I've done 12. It is a good idea for you to just double check by counting the stitches to make sure you have 12, because if you don't, that throws out the rest of the pattern. So what I'll do is I'll pick up my needle to count. So counting, this is the first stitch. We can count backwards. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that was the very first double crochet stitch, and that's where we're going to put our needle to finish off, our hook, sorry, to finish off. So I'm going to make sure you go through the 2 loops of that stitch, pull your yarn through that and through the first or the last loop, the loop that's on your hook, and that's you finished with the red. So you can cut the yarn and pull it through, and that's your first circle for the square. You can pull, I'm not going to pull this up tight at this point because it can tighten up these stitches, and we're going to be working into these stitches. So when I come to finish off all the threads at the end of the square, I'll tighten this one up and finish it off. Right, for round 2, we're going to start to make the leaves for this little berry. Now, I don't particularly like starting where I've just finished. I prefer to start somewhere different. So I'm going to just go into one of the stitches and make a slip stitch. Everybody again has their own way of doing a slip stitch, so just do whichever way suits you. So we've got that on, and we're through one of the stitches, the top stitches of that first round. You're going to chain 2, and then we're going to start a treble stitch. So to start the treble stitch, you yarn over, put your hook into that same stitch and pull it through, and then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Now, to finish that treble stitch, you would normally yarn over and pull through the 2 loops, but we're going to just leave it as half a treble stitch, I'm going to yarn over again and put my hook in the same space, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and at this point you can pull through 2. So what you've actually done is you've done 2 treble stitches and you've anchored them together at the top to make a little cluster. And I'm going to chain 1 to separate the clusters, because I'm going to make a second one into exactly the same space. So that's the half treble, or at least not, let's not be confusing. It's not the half treble stitch, it's I've done half of the treble stitch. And then I'm going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and then pull through all 3 loops. So there I've got 2 clusters worked into the 1 stitch. I'm going to chain 2 now, and I'm going to miss the next stitch and work my next cluster in the second stitch along. So I shall do that. Chain 1 to separate the clusters. And then chain 2, ready to travel along to miss that space and work into the next stitch. Chain 2. And you can see what I'm doing. I've done 3 groups of the leaves so far, and because we're missing a stitch each time, it means that by the time you come round to where you started, you'll have a grouping of 6 of these clusters. So I'm going to stop the video and I'll start again when I get to the end of the round 2. So there we have 6 groups of green leaves, and there's a chain 2 space between each group, and there's a chain 1 space between each of the 2 clusters in each group. So just remember, you've got chain 2 spaces and chain 1 spaces because you're going to be using them in the next round. So I've just finished my last group, so I just need to chain 2 and then slip stitch into the top of the very first stitch to finish that off. Cut the yarn and pull through. Now that is the first 2 rounds of the square, and what we're going to do to start the next round is to flip this over to the other side. So I will finish off some of these ends before I come back so that they don't get confusing for the video, and then we'll be ready to start round 3. So I've tidied everything up, I've sewn in all the ends and pulled that centre hole nice and tight, and as you can see, as I said, I flipped this over to the other side. I haven't left, I tend, just a word about this last end, I prefer personally not to stitch that in until I've done the next round, because sometimes if you stitch this in back and forwards, it can make this a little bit complicated and difficult to see where to put your needle, your hook, so I leave that until afterwards. I've also pulled that centre really tightly to close it up. Now this is round 3 and we're starting with the white this time. Now remember, we had, let me get this in the right place, we had 2 chain spaces and 1 chain space. So the 2 chain spaces separate the groups of green, and the 1 chain space separates the 2 individual clusters in each group. And we're actually going to start in one of the 1 chain spaces. So I'm going to attach my yarn, and we're going to put 3 treble stitches in each of these 1 chain spaces. So I'm going to chain 2, and that chain 2 corresponds with the first treble, and I'm going to make a treble stitch. That's yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're completing the treble stitch this time. This is not a cluster, this is 3 treble stitches. Yarn over into the same 1 chain space, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's the first group of stitches. Now we come to the 2 chain space, and for this we're going to make double treble stitches. Just makes a slightly longer stitch because we're not going to work into the green. We're actually going to zip right down and work into the stitch, that empty stitch from the first round of the red double crochet. So to make a double treble stitch, you're going to yarn over twice this time, come right down and find that red double crochet stitch. Remember there was one in between the clusters that was left empty. I've picked up a little thread here. I don't want to pull that red thread through. That's it. Now you want to pull this stitch up to the height of the treble crochet cluster, well, the treble crochet stitches from before. So you just bring it up quite high. So you've yarned over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So it's quite a long stitch, but it has to travel down to the red. Yarn over twice into the same little stitch, pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And again, wrap twice into that same stitch, pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So there, this is going to repeat all the way around, and you see you've got 3 trebles followed by 3 double trebles. So now we're coming back to a 1 chain space, so it's back to 3 treble stitches. 1, 2, 3. So I'll do one more group of the double trebles, and then I'll zip on and get it finished right round to the end, and I'll come back once I've got to the end. But we'll do this one more group of double trebles first. So I'm going to wrap twice round the needle, look for that empty red double crochet stitch, pull it up nice and high, and make the double treble stitch. Wrap round twice into that same stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Once more. And that's, you can see what's happening there. You're getting a little kind of V shape around the green to just try and give it a little jagged look to the leaf. So I'm going to work right round, and I'll see you when I get back to this point. Now I've gone all the way round with round 3, and I'm back to where I started. And before I finish off, I'll just want to let you see this. Now it looks as if it's got a bit bumpy, and indeed it has, but it's very easy to flatten it out. Don't worry about that bump. That's just because the center circle was pulled so tight. But you see how it flattens out. Now I've just completed my last double treble group of 3 stitches, so all you need to do is slip stitch into the top of the first stitch, and that's round 3. Now I'm not going to change colour. I'm going to be doing the next row in the white as well, so I don't need to cut the yarn. I'm going to chain 2, and again I'm going to turn over, and we've turned once more onto the other side. Now I've got my chain 2 already done, and we're going to start to square off this circle, and the first thing we're going to do is to make the corner. So we've chained 2, that corresponds with being the first treble stitch. So I'm going to make another 2 treble stitches into the corner, into that space. and chain 2 for the absolute corner, and then 3 more treble stitches into that same space. And like magic, you can see that it's beginning to square off. Into the next space between the groups, and I'm going to put in 3 half treble stitches. So to make a half treble stitch, you yarn over, put your hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. That makes a slightly smaller stitch than the treble stitch, which means that it's going to make a nice straight edge for your square. Yarn over, put your hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. Do that once more, and that's one cluster of 3 stitches. So the next one is along here, and again we're going to put in 3 half treble stitches. And in the next space it's time to make the next corner. So it's 3 trebles, so it's yarn over, put your hook in, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and do that twice more. Chain 2 and 3 more in that same space to make the corner, 3 more trebles, and then yarn over, and we're going to put 3 half trebles, and another group of 3 half trebles, and we're ready for the next corner. So we've actually got, between each corner there are 2 sets of 3 half trebles, so it's ready for the next, to create the next corner. So again it's back to treble stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3, and 3 half trebles, and 3 half trebles. We're almost on to the last side of this square. So we've got 3 trebles, chain 2 for the corner, 3 trebles in the same space, which gives the right angle. This is bumping up again, don't worry about that. And 3 half trebles and 3 half trebles. Now, when we started with the very first corner, we made that complete corner, 3 trebles, chain 2, 3 trebles. So when we've come along to the end, all you need to do is find your first, the top of your first chain 2, and that's the second round of white. It's round 4 done, and that's the second round of white. We're going to snip that and finish it off, because the next colour is going to form the edge. And you see how nicely that flattens down when it's been done. So don't worry about it looking bumpy. I'm going to pull this end through to finish off, because I've turned it again, and you can see that the last round that you've done has been turned, and we're going to do the edge. Now when we do the edge, it's going to be definitely front facing. So this is the front of your holly pattern. If I turn it over to the other side, you can see that it does sink a bit out of sight, not so much out of sight, but it's not as prominent. So I prefer to have it looking like that. Okay, so we're going to start this edge. This looks quite fancy, but believe me, it's very easy. So this is what we're going to do now. Now I've taken my next colour. This is a different yarn as well. This is the Stylecraft Batik in silver. You can just as easily use the Stylecraft Special in Hint of Silver, and I'm saying that now because I've had problems in the past when the batik colours have been discontinued. So just in case the silver batik gets discontinued, you can use Hint of Silver in the Stylecraft Special, but that's in the pattern. So we're going to start in a corner and attach the yarn as usual. And chain 2, and that's going to correspond to the first half treble stitch. So this round is all going to be done in half trebles, and it's a simple round. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and do that once more for the corner. And then into the next group of the next space and do 3 half trebles. I've got a piece of paper sitting here which is just so that I can tell where my centre is for working, so that it's in camera and it keeps slipping off, so please forgive me for that. I've got another 1 half treble to do of that group, and then I'm going to put 3 half trebles along in the next space, and we've got 1 more space before the next corner. Again, 3 half trebles, and I'm into the corner, and it's 3 half trebles, chain 2 and 3 half trebles. Now I'm going to stop the video and come back when I've gone all the way around, and I'll tell you what happens next. So there we go, that's it flat again. I'll see you when I'm back at this point. So I've worked all the way around this square with the half trebles, and I've just completed the last group of half trebles before the corner. This was the corner where we started, and we started with just half of it. We did the chain 2 and 2 half trebles, so we just have to finish off this corner with another group of 3 half trebles and chain 2, and then slip stitch into the top of the first chain 2. Now this time I'm not going to finish this yarn off. I'm not going to be using this yarn in the next round, but I think it's possible to work the next round in the contrasting colour and then come back to this colour without having to finish it, so that it'd be a few less ends to sew in. So what I tend to do is I just pull up a big loop and leave it. You could put a stitch marker in, but I think it's fine just to pull up the big loop. So my next colour is the, I should have had it ready, which I did of course, but now I can't find it. Here it is. And this is going to be a little contrasting stitch, which is going to, very, very simple little stitch, but it's just going to edge this round of half trebles, and then we'll have another round of half trebles to go on top of it. Now what I suggest you do is avoid the corner where you have left your loop, and instead of starting in a corner, I'm going to start somewhere to the left of this corner here. And what we're going to do is not work into these spaces between the groups of 3, but we're actually going to work into the top of every stitch all the way along. and we're going to put a double crochet stitch. Now I'll just, as I say, 2 or 3, doesn't matter, you don't have to count, 2 or 3 stitches to one side of this corner, and I'm going to attach, this is the dark green yarn, and I'm going to attach that in the top of a stitch and chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch. I'm just going to put a double crochet into the same space, same stitch, so that's my first stitch. Now all you need to do is look for all the stitches and put 1 double crochet in each of these stitches. Again, in US terms, that's single crochet in each of these stitches all the way along. And what I'll do is I'll run along as far as the corner, show you what happens in there, and then I'll stop the video and go all the way around. So just picking up the top of the grey stitch and putting in a double crochet stitch. Now I'm at the corner. What I'm going to do in the corner is simply 3 double crochet stitches into the corner, and as I'm doing that I'm turning around ready to start the next side. So you can see it's just a simple row of double crochet stitches. So I'll work all the way around and I'll see you when I get to this corner and explain what happens there. Right, so I've come all the way around with this double crochet stitch. Remember, put 3 double crochets in each corner, just 3. You're not making a tight corner. You don't need to worry about putting in any chain 2 or anything. It's just 3 double crochets to get you around the corner. And I've come to where we started, or where we left off this loop of grey yarn. So I'm going to have to work around that because I want to get round to this point to finish this green off. So I'm going to start the corner and put a double crochet in and a second double crochet, and then I'm going to push this loop to the front, push it down out the way and make the 3rd double crochet, and then I just need to finish off by coming along the edge again until I meet where I started, which is just about, I've got 1 more stitch to put in, and then you just need to slip stitch to the top of the first double crochet stitch and we're finished with this dark green. You can slip that, and so that is round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, round 6 really of the square, and we're finished with that dark green. So we can put this loop back on the hook, and we have 1 more round to do, but this round is actually the joining round. If I get hold of my little piece again, you can see that this grey edge here goes around, but it also joins to the next square. So that is for another video, but I'll show you what we're going to do. In fact, the very first one, I should have actually shown you with the first one. This very first square of this block is the one where you complete all 4 sides of the final edge, because it's not joined at that point. When it's on its own, it's not joined to anything else. This is not continuous join as you go. This is simple join as you go. So we're joining each square individually to its neighbour. But this particular one, because this is the one I started with, it didn't have anything to join to, so I did all 4 sides of the final edging. So, right, I'll do one side of this and then I'll show you how I attach it to its neighbour. So I've made sure that this loop that I've put back onto my hook is in front of the dark green, and I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to start another round of half treble stitch. So into the corner. A little thing to say about that is that you're actually going to be working underneath this edging of dark green. So you forget it, you're not going to worry about, you don't have to worry about trying to fit into the dark green. You're going underneath it to the round below. So basically all you've done is if you like, you've just put an outline around the previous round of grey half trebles, and now you're putting another round of grey half trebles, and it's going over the top of the green. That sound, I've got myself tied up in knots trying to explain that. It's better to let you see it. So I've chained 2, and I'm going right down into that space from the corner of the grey round, and I'm going to put a half treble and another half treble. That's the start of my corner. Then I'm coming along, and forget this green edge altogether. Yarn over, go right underneath as if you were just about to put another round of grey, and put 3 half trebles in. So it's kind of like you're bypassing the green. You're not working into the green at all. Now have a look. You can see that there's a group of 3 grey, 3 grey, 3 grey, 3 grey. So I just need to find the spaces between the 3 grey half trebles and put 3 half trebles, just like you would do a granny stitch. And then another group of 3 half trebles, and then I'll show you, once I've finished this edge, I'll show you what it looks like. And I'm going to come to the corner now, and I'm going to put 3 half trebles and stop at that point. Now if I lay that out and I pull, what I'll do is I'll pull these green ends through to the back because they need to be finished off, but I'll just pull them through ready to stitch them in. And what happens is you've got a double row of pale grey, but in between you've got these little almost inverted V shapes, which is just the bit of the double crochet round that's showing and between the groups of 3 grey, and it does give a nice broken edge, if you like, and bringing in a tiny little bit of a different colour. Now the reason I stopped after half of this corner is that I want to put the other half in once I've started to join it to the larger group of squares. So I'm going to leave that for another video, and I'll leave you with this one for the time being, and this is the holly square from the centre of the Christmas blanket. See you later.